What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Trucker 219. So we've done a deep dive on 5 more companies, so that means it's time to rank them. We're going to be ranking Western Express, Swift Transportation, Covenant Transport, US Express, and PAM Transport. And the ranking tiers are as follows: Platinum, Gold, Silver, Bronze, and Rusted. And we're kicking this video off with Western Express. Now, Western Express does not offer a CDL training program, meaning that you're going to have to come on board with the CDL. Their new driver training program is 2 to 3 weeks long, paid out at $500 a week for that training. Once you complete the training, you'll go solo, starting out at 40 cents per mile. And the recruiter said you'd be averaging about 2,500 miles per week. That means that your weekly check with those numbers would be around $1,000 pre-tax. They did say that they offer a safety and performance bonus between 2 and 7 cents, so this could add to the total. But when you're looking at a company, you don't want to bank on the bonuses, you just want to bank on the base cents per mile. And just look at the bonus as a little bit of extra on top of the normal pay. Now, despite them not having a CDL training program, they still do not offer any sort of tuition reimbursement, meaning that you're going to have to go through a CDL school and bear the burden of that total cost. Western Express does not offer any benefits to veterans either. But the thing about Western Express is they are known for being a second chance company, meaning that they'll hire you even if you have some stains on your background or driving history. So for Western Express, their home time's pretty standard. Their pay isn't the best, but it's definitely not the worst on this list. But the fact that they don't offer any sort of CDL training and no tuition reimbursement or any benefits to veterans, this really puts them towards the bottom of the list. And really the only reason they're not in Rusted is because they are a second chance company and willing to give drivers a new opportunity, even if they've had mess ups in the past. Moving right along here to Swift Transportation. Now, Swift does offer a CDL training program, and this program is 4 weeks long, during which time you will not receive any pay. If you go through their CDL training program, you'll have to sign a 1-year contract that you'll work for them for 1 year. Now, the cost of going through their CDL training program is $7,995, but Swift is going to reduce that balance by $75 per week as long as you're with the company over the course of that year. And once you've completed that 1-year contract, you'll no longer owe any money to Swift. That being said, if you decide to leave before that 1 year is up, you'll owe the balance that is left at the time that you move on from Swift Transportation. Now, Swift also does not offer any tuition reimbursement, meaning that if you go to a private CDL school, again, you're going to have to burden that entire cost. So whether you go through Swift's CDL training program or go through a private trucking school, you'll still have to go out with a trainer for 4 weeks. And for those 4 weeks, you'll be paid out at $650 per week. Now, once you go solo at Swift, you'll start out at 43 cents per mile, and the driver recruiter said you'd be averaging about 2,200 miles per week. This means that you should expect a weekly check of about $946 pre-tax. And for Swift's home time policy, it's 14 days out for 2 to 3 days home. Now, for the veterans out there, they do offer benefits for veterans, and this might help you cover the cost of your CDL training. So if you want to know more information about that, give them a call and see what they're offering. Now, for Swift, their pay is a little bit better than Western Express, and they offer a CDL training program, and they also offer benefits for veterans. The downsides to Swift is they don't offer any tuition reimbursement. Their contract is pretty standard across the industry, but a little bit high on this list. So I'm going to go ahead and put Swift somewhere in between this silver and gold. Swift is just one of those companies that kind of falls right down the middle on everything. Pretty standard contract, pretty standard cost of tuition, mediocre cents per mile, and one of the big things pushing them a little bit higher than just right down the middle is the fact that they offer benefits for veterans. Moving right along to the next company we did a deep dive on, Covenant Transportation. Now, prior to doing the deep dive on Covenant, I didn't realize that it is a team operation company. So this could be a positive or a negative for you depending on where you stand. So despite this being a team operation, I've done my best to break it down to what you would make as an individual. Now, Covenant doesn't offer a CDL training program, but they would require a new driver to spend 145 hours with a driver mentor. And this comes out to be about 3 weeks, and you'd get paid $600 for each of those weeks. Once you get done with that training, you would get linked up with a driver teammate. Now, according to their website, they let you pick who your teammate is. However, some of the reviews said you get kind of stuck with who you get stuck with. So for this one specifically, I highly recommend you check out my deep dive on this, where I give some tips from my experience doing some teamwork to pick a good teammate to run with. Nevertheless, once you're with your teammate, you'll be starting out at 52 cents per mile. An average team for Covenant will run about 5,500 miles per week. Now, the way Covenant does this is they split the miles 50-50. This way, if somebody gets stuck in traffic or stuck on a dock on their shift. Regardless of who's doing the most amount of work, the pay would be fair and equal. This means at 5,500 miles per week, each individual should expect to make 2,750 miles for the week. Multiplying that by 52 cents per mile, you can expect to make $1,430 a week pre-tax as an individual. Covenant's home time policy is 12 days out for 2 days home. But that being said, when we did the deep dive, we've seen a lot of reviews of drivers having trouble getting home when they request to be home. Covenant does not offer a CDL training program, but they do offer tuition reimbursement if you've gone through a private CDL training school. Covenant also offers some benefits to veterans, so if you're a veteran, give them a call to find out more information about that. Now for Covenant, it's totally up to you whether you want to drive as a team operation or not. But when I did the deep dive, I found in a bunch of different reviews some issues with getting home on time, as well as the miles not quite being as much as what they had claimed them to be. But their home time, tuition reimbursement, cents per mile, the fact that they work with veterans, all these things are big positive things for me. So for that reason, I'm going to put them just a hair above Swift. But this is all assuming that you do want to do a team operation, and I understand that might not be for everybody. Next up on the list is US Express. Now again, US Express does not offer a CDL training program. So if you're coming in as a new driver, you're going to want to make sure you have that CDL when you come on board. When you start as a new driver with US Express, you can expect to be out for 3 to 4 weeks with a trainer, paid out at $650 per week. Now US Express is unique in the fact that they have over-the-road, regional, and some local positions. So if you're wanting to bounce around a little bit and see what works best for you, this might be a good place to do that. With US Express, over-the-road drivers start out at 49 cents per mile, and their drivers are averaging about 2,000 miles per week. With those numbers, you can expect a paycheck around $980 a week pre-tax. The home time for US Express is pretty standard across the industry at 1 week out for 1 day home. US Express does offer a tuition reimbursement. Their policy is $150 to $200 per week, and they will reimburse up to $7,000. US Express does claim to offer some benefits to veterans, so if you're a veteran, definitely give them a call to see what those are. With all that information in mind, I'm going to have to put US Express right around this same tier as Swift. Maybe just a hair lower because they do not offer any sort of CDL training program, but honestly, outside of that, everything is pretty similar to Swift. And I know some of you guys might have expected some really big winners out of this list, but it seems like most of these companies are relatively average. And we're on to the final company, and that is PAM Transport. And this was my most recent deep dive, and I was thoroughly disappointed with PAM Transport after doing that deep dive. But there is one big opportunity for drivers at this company, and we're going to get into that right now. PAM Transport does offer a CDL training program, and this program is 3 weeks long, and during that training you'll get a $100 stipend per week. And the big thing about PAM is they have one of, if not the shortest contract in the industry to serve in order to get your CDL. And this contract is only 6 months long. The total cost of tuition to go through PAM to get your CDL is $7,500. Now during that 6-month contract with PAM, you'll be reducing that balance by $150 a month. Now once you've completed the 6 months with PAM, they'll pay off the entire balance of that loan. And I say this is a loan because they are actually using your credit, your social security in order to pull this loan. But for just 6 months, you could walk away with a CDL completely paid for. And being that I recommend drivers to stay on with their first company for 6 months to a year anyway, this honestly is one of the biggest highlights for PAM. Alright, the good stuff out of the way, it's time to move on to the bad stuff about PAM. First thing being is that they require drivers to be within 90 miles of any given terminal. So much so that the location that I currently live in, they would require me to move 7 miles south to be within that criteria. And for PAM, this is a non-negotiable. They will not work with you unless you are within that 90-mile radius of any given terminal. The unfortunate part is PAM's website did not list any of their terminal locations, so I wasn't able to decipher where all their locations are. After you get your CDL with PAM, you'll have to go out with a driver mentor for 11 to 18 days. For those 11 to 18 days, you'll be paid out at $75 to $100 per day. Once you complete their new driver training, you'll go solo at a measly 35 cents per mile. And I've done a deep dive on 20 companies at this point, and this is hands down the lowest pay that I've ever seen starting out. That being said, the recruiter said you would average about 2,300 miles per week. This would mean that you would make $770 per week pre-tax. Their home time policy is 7 to 10 days out, and you'll do a 34-hour reset back at home. Now, PAM Transport is one of those ones that does not offer a tuition reimbursement. So again, if you go through a private institution with PAM, you're going to be responsible for that total balance. And finally, PAM Transport does not offer any benefits to veterans. So unfortunately, the only reason I would recommend PAM Transportation is to absolutely take advantage of their CDL training program for a 6-month contract. And as soon as that's completed, find somewhere else to work, because 35 cents per mile is not it. So for those reasons, I can't put them completely in rusted, but good Lord, they are pretty rough. Well, there you have it. Another 5 companies in the books, and this is where they fall on the ranking list. And the ranking goes as follows. Covenant is right in between gold and silver. Swift is just a hair lower, mostly in silver with a little bit in gold. US Express is just a little bit lower than that, mostly in silver. Moving down to Western Express, not quite rusted, but not quite all the way in bronze. A little bit in between, but a little bit higher off than PAM. And PAM Transport's coming in at the bottom of the list, halfway in between gold and rusted. But in the comments down below, let me know what you think about this ranking. Do you think that some companies should be higher or lower on the list? And if you've gone to work for any of these companies, let us know about your experience down below. And if you want to join the conversation about these companies and many more, head on over to the Trucker 219 Discord server. I'll leave a link for that down below. And I highly encourage everybody to check out the full deep dives on each of these companies, as you're going to get a lot more insight taking a look at the full deep dive. And if you want to do that, click the playlist right here. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, bye.